During her visit, a small child nervously admitted to avoiding combing her hair. However, what the hairdresser discovered next was quite disturbing, and she immediately contacted the police. "You're not clear. Neither of us is touching our hair," Clara snapped, her arms shielding her head as if she were defending herself against an unseen attack. Her mother, Lisa, sighed irritably, hands on her hips. "Clara, this is completely ridiculous. It's becoming unmanageable. You haven't combed your hair in months." Clara's defiance, while not new, had recently grown in intensity. Lisa couldn't recall when it began, but her once outgoing 14-year-old had turned inward. Clara had always been proud of her long, wavy brown hair, but it was tangled and matted today, with its natural shine replaced by a dull, dead texture. Lisa reached out for Clara's hand, hoping to reason with her. "Honey, you've always liked Mrs. Turner. Just go to her salon. She's very gentle and friendly." "Not at all," Clara yelled, pulling away. "I want nobody to touch me." Lisa froze, startled by the intensity of her daughter's voice. Clara's comments were not typical teenage rebellion. They were filled with fear, which chilled her. Lisa called Mrs. Elaine Turner, a trusted hairdresser in their small town, later that evening. Elaine was well known for her understanding and patience, particularly with young people. Lisa described the situation, her voice full of concern. "Something seems wrong, Elaine. Clara is no longer herself. Her hair is also worse than I had previously assumed. Could you help?" Elaine agreed to look into it and scheduled an early appointment to ensure their anonymity. Lisa pushed Clara into the car and promised ice cream later that morning. Despite the oppressive summer heat, Clara reluctantly agreed but refused to remove her hoodie. Elaine greeted them warmly at the salon, and her calm demeanor helped to ease Lisa's anxiety. "Hi, Clara," Elaine said, her tone light and happy. "I'm so glad you came to visit me today." Clara gave a tight smile but said nothing as Elaine led her to her chair. Elaine began staring at Clara's hair as Lisa sat in a chair across the room. Elaine winced as she gently parted Clara's hair. She wasn't concerned about the tangles, despite their severity. She noticed dark, discolored patches on Clara's scalp near her head's crown. In some places, sticky clusters of an unknown substance had hardened. In others, they appeared to be dirt or dried residue. "Sweetheart," Elaine began gently, "how long has your hair been like this?" Clara nodded and stared at her lap. She said nothing. Elaine looked at Lisa, who had risen from her chair, clearly concerned. "What is wrong here?" Lisa searched. Elaine said, her voice steady. "I have to be careful with this. There are more than just tangles here." Lisa's face turned white. "I had asked her for help, but she refused. I assumed it was just a phase." Her voice stopped as shame crept in. Clara wriggled in her seat. "Could we please pause?" She uttered a whisper. "Not yet," Elaine replied softly. "I just want to make sure everything is okay, and I promise to be as gentle as possible." Elaine kept working, noticing Clara flinch when she touched certain parts of her scalp. The girl's responses indicated pain rather than discomfort. Elaine paused, her heart dragging. "Does touching your head hurt?" Clara hesitated, then nodded slightly. Lisa froze as the realization weighed on her. "Why didn't you tell me about your suffering?" Clara shrugged, tears forming in her eyes. "Not much matters." Elaine entered the rear room and excused herself. She had to organize her thoughts and plan her approach to this. She quickly texted her retired social worker husband, explaining the situation and seeking advice. Her husband responded immediately, looking for signs of neglect or damage. This could indicate more than a personal issue. Elaine returned to the salon floor, determined to approach things differently. She softly said, "I think there's something going on that you're afraid to talk about. I'm not mad at you, and neither is your mother. Could you believe me?" Clara remained silent despite her trembling lips. Elaine discovered a tiny hardened object buried in the matting as she worked through another section of hair. Her heart dropped when she realized it appeared to have been placed there on purpose rather than by chance. Elaine looked at Lisa and said softly, "I'm finding things in her hair that shouldn't be there. Although this is unusual, I need more time to work through this." Lisa thought her knees had weakened. "So what exactly do you mean? Things?" Elaine hesitated, not wanting to frighten her even more. "Right now it's difficult to explain, but I promise to be as careful as possible." Clara leapt from her chair and dashed to the bathroom. The salon heard the lock click repeatedly. Lisa called after her, but her voice broke. "Come outside, Clara. Please speak with us." Elaine gently placed a reassuring hand on Lisa's shoulder. "Let us pause. She is terrified of something." Clara leaned against the bathroom door, tears streaming down her face. Not yet. She couldn't bring herself to tell the truth. The memories of what had happened were too painful and too recent. Outside, Elaine and Lisa exchange worried looks, the air heavy with unspoken anxiety. Elaine left the salon for a while, then returned, her head whirling. Something was wrong, and it went beyond messy hair. Her gaze shifted to the bathroom door as she watched Lisa, who was nervously tapping her foot. "When Elaine comes out, I'll speak with her again," she said gently. Lisa nodded, but her gaze lacked conviction. "For months, Elaine has been excluding me. I keep believing I'm doing something wrong despite the fact that I can't see what it is." Elaine lowered her voice and bent beside Lisa. "Do you know if anything recently happened? Maybe at school, bullies, a struggle, anything unusual?" Lisa scowled as she wrinkled her brain. "A few months ago, she returned home unhappy. She said nothing, so I assumed it was just a bad day. She then began to wear hoodies and refused to comb her hair. I should have investigated further." The bathroom door creaked open, and Clara emerged with her hoodie still tightly over her head. Her gaze shifted between her mother and Elaine as she paused in the doorway. Elaine asked softly, "Why don't we take a break and just chat for a little? If you want, you can skip sitting in the chair." Clara hesitated before nodding slightly. Her arms encircled her knees as she sat on the edge of a sofa in the corner, and Lisa sat next to her, trying to meet her eye. "Sweetheart, you can tell us if something is wrong. We simply want to help." Clara appeared to open up for a brief moment, but no words came out. "Clara, I've seen plenty of children arrive with messy hair before, so Elaine chose to approach things gently. Instead, she turned aside and fixed her gaze on the wall." Clara moved awkwardly. "Sometimes it's because they don't know how to handle it, and sometimes it's because something happened that made them believe they couldn't. Whatever the reason, it's important to talk about it." "It's not that simple," she said. "Why not?" Lisa asked, her voice faltering. Clara clenched her hands and shook her shoulders. She whispered, barely audible because they claimed I couldn't tell. Elaine looked at Lisa, both women alert, and gently asked, "Who said you couldn't tell?" Clara shook her head as tears ran down her cheeks. "It makes no difference. They'll aggravate the situation." Lisa leaned in, her heart breaking. "Nobody else will hurt you, honey. I promise you that you are safe here." Clara buried her face in her knees, avoiding further conversation. Elaine inhaled deeply, determined to continue working on her hair, as Clara curled on the sofa. "If everything is fine, I will just check one more time. I'll be as mild as possible. You can tell me to stop at any time." Clara's body stiffened and she nodded slightly. Elaine came across another area of matted hair, where something strange caught her attention as she began her meticulous work. Small pieces of a dried, sticky substance were buried in the tangles. Clara's scalp had more dark, discolored patches and a mild chemical odor. "This is what's happening," Elaine muttered under her breath. Clara reflected back. "Not at all." Elaine spoke in a consistent but strong voice. "This doesn't look like nothing, sweetheart. Someone has left something in your hair." Clara's silence meant a lot. Elaine put down her tools. Her chest tightened with fear. She looked at Lisa. "We really should have a serious conversation. This goes beyond just having messy hair." Lisa looked at her daughter, her expression a mix of anxiety and determination. "Clara, whatever happened, we can fix it. Tell us exactly what you mean." Clara's breathing quickened, and she briefly considered running again. This time, however, Elaine only lightly rested a hand on her shoulder. "Clara, you're safe here. Nobody means to harm you. But in order for us to proceed, I must first understand what occurred." Clara paused, then said softly, "It was at school." Lisa came to a stop. "At school? What followed?" Clara dabbed her eyes, her voice shaking. "A few girls were present. They circled me in the toilet. They poured glue into my hair and told me I was ugly and dumb." Her voice cracked, and she began to cry. Lisa reached for her mouth as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Oh my God, Clara, why didn't you tell me? They threatened to make things worse if I told anyone." Clara choked. Elaine had a flash of grief and rage. She hugged Clara tenderly. "I'm sorry this happened to you, darling. Still, you did nothing illegal, so this is not your fault." Lisa knelt and stroked her daughter's back. "We will correct this. Those daughters will not get away with it, I swear." Elaine let out a deep gasp. Her voice is cool and firm. "Lisa, I should probably call the police. This is abuse, not just bullying." Clara shook her head as panic gripped her. "No, you can't. They'd know it was me." Elaine stooped to meet Clara's eyes. "I swear not to hurt you again. We must, however, ensure they are accountable." "You're not alone in this, Clara." Lisa paused, torn between the call for justice and her daughter's anxiety. She nodded one last time. "Elaine's is correct. We need to finish this." Elaine went straight to the back room to make the call. Her hands shook slightly as she told the cops about the situation. When she returned, she found Clara finally giving in and leaning against her mother for comfort. The police car arrived just as Clara tightened her grip on her mother's arm. Lisa spoke soothing words, but Clara's body shook. Elaine softly informed the two police officers who entered the salon about the situation. Their professional but sympathetic demeanor immediately put Lisa at ease. One of the officers, Detective Susan Miller, approached Clara and spoke softly and steadily. "Hello, Clara. Susan, my name is. I promise you're safe with us, and I'm here to help. Could you please provide me with a brief overview of events?" Clara said nothing, her face buried against Lisa's side. Elaine, standing nearby, gently intervened. "She is afraid, but based on what we have discovered, this is more than just a bad hair day." Elaine pointed to her tools and the evidence she had discovered, which included blue light clusters and other foreign objects buried in Clara's hair. Detective Miller frowned as he browsed the supplies. She murmured to her partner, Officer Daniels, that this appeared deliberate. Lisa spoke with a shaky voice. "She told us that a group of schoolgirls threatened her after putting glue in her hair. She has been too afraid to confide in anyone." Her tiny, fractured voice was cut off. "I deserved it," they said. "Should I tell you they promised to find me again?" Detective Miller's eyes softened as she bent down. "Though I understand how frightening this is, what those girls did to you is entirely wrong and not your fault. They harmed you. Our job is to ensure that they do not hurt anyone else." Clara peered out from behind Lisa, her face hesitant and streaked with tears. "Shouldn't they stop?" Miller assured her firmly. "We'll make sure of it. We'll keep you safe." Elaine continued to gently work on Clara's hair while Miller asked more questions. She gradually discovered areas on Clara's scalp where the glue had hardened so much that it had caused sores. Other areas revealed broken threads and signs of forced patch removal. Elaine paused, her hands shaking. "This did not happen once," she said softly, her voice full of grief and rage. Lisa appeared horrified. "You mean what?" Elaine stopped. "These types of injuries require time to manifest. This appears to have been going on for months." Clara's silence served as sufficient proof. Miller rose to her feet, her voice sharp. "We will first compile a list of the girls who are engaged and their quotes. If you're ready, Clara, we'd like your help. However, only when you feel safe enough." The cops took Elaine's gathered evidence before leaving, promising to investigate further. Clara appeared tired, as if the months of shame and anxiety had finally caught up with her. Elaine gently cut Clara's damaged hair, leaving her with a short but tidy look. She grinned and said, "There. Clara, you look strong and lovely." Clara turned to face the mirror, her fingers brushing the just-cut threads. She smiled shyly for the first time in months. The investigation progressed over the next few weeks. Clara held the girls accountable for their actions based on police evidence and Elaine's testimony. The school had to act, so it suspended the girls and implemented new anti-bullying policies. Clara's neighbors and friends rallied the community to support her. Elaine began visiting their home on a regular basis, guiding Clara one step at a time toward confidence. Lisa, however, battled shame. She broke down one evening while sitting on Elaine's back porch. "I should have seen it earlier. When she began withdrawing, I should have pushed harder." Elaine placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Lisa, you fought for her when it mattered and did your best with what you knew. That's what really matters." Clara was gradually regaining her sense of self. She worked through the trauma in therapy sessions with a sympathetic counselor, and eventually she began to share her story. Clara finally joined the art club after meeting new friends at school, who encouraged her to participate in previously enjoyed activities. Clara's life began to change several months after the incident occurred. However, the road to recovery was long and filled with moments when Clara questioned herself. Clara sat at the kitchen table one morning, drawing in her notebook. Lisa set a stack of pancakes in front of her. Lisa said softly, You seem very reflective." Clara shrugs, fixated on her sketch. It was a picture of a tree with strong roots but broken branches. "Sometimes I get the impression that people treat me out of guilt, as if they are just acting." Lisa sat down next to Clara, hugging her from the side. "People love you for who you are, sweetheart, despite everything you've been through. Not out of pity for you. You are gifted, gentle, and courageous. Remember, never forget." Clara smiled quickly but didn't say anything. Later that day, Elaine unexpectedly stopped by. She carried a box wrapped in colorful paper into the house. "Hey, Clara, I bought you something." Clara's eyes lit up with curiosity. "What's that?" "Open it and discover," Elaine said, smiling. Clara ripped off the wrapping paper, revealing a set of professional art tools including paints, brushes, pencils, and a sketch pad. Her face lit up with enthusiasm. "This is wonderful. Thank you very much." Elaine did a quick wink. "Your mother informed me that you have recently been drawing a lot. I reasoned that you could use some tools to elevate it." After several weeks, Clara began to express herself through her artwork. Her paintings vividly captured resiliency, strength, and hope, each representing a different stage of her journey. Her therapist urged her to let others see her work. Elaine remained a close friend and mentor. Her salon now provides Clara with comfort and support. Clara felt strong enough to face whatever lay ahead, a first in a long time. She recalled the day at the salon when everything had changed as she sat in her room one evening, sketching a new picture. She still carried the fear, suffering, and uncertainty. However, she also carried courage, love, and the unwavering support of those around her, and she was grateful. Do you believe that minor actions can conceal major secrets? What would you have done if you were at the hairdresser's? I appreciate you watching this fantastic story. Make sure to come back for more captivating and remarkable stories.